Good afternoon. This is Larry, and as part of my service and my team service to help you with the seller's property disclosure statement, I wanted to touch on a few key points that will be helpful and advantageous as you're completing the seller's disclosure statement. To make the experience of selling your property more pleasant, both now and after the sale, my team and I want to provide you with an overview of the Minnesota Seller's Property Disclosure Statement. Now, I can share that this form is state mandated with some exceptions, and those are on page 9. It is heavily relied on and closely scrutinized by prospective buyers both before and after the sale. Carefully reading lines 5 through 24, as well as lines 29 through 32, will prepare you well to complete the form. If, after many years in the real estate business, we could offer any advice regarding this disclosure statement, it would be to recommend that you be very honest and as accurate as possible. We suggest that if, at any time while completing the form, you wonder if an item is too small or too trivial to disclose, the answer is simply disclose, disclose, disclose. In the end, we know that you will always be better off over disclosing than under disclosing. Therefore, even if something occurred only once or was seemingly minor, you will be better served now and after the sale to disclose the item. If a prospective buyer decides not to purchase your home because of what is noted on the disclosure, you will be far better off in the long run. Buyers will always appreciate and respect a seller's candidness and honesty, as they know that no property is completely perfect. Lastly, this disclosure can only be completed by you. Legally, real estate agents, such as myself or my staff, cannot complete this disclosure. Therefore, as a reminder, any items you disclose must be in writing and must be on this form. If you share verbally or casually any disclosure items with any of my team members, we cannot add those items or comments to the disclosure. You must, now and before closing, place them on the disclosure or the disclosure amendment. If you have any additional written information that you need to disclose, you must make note on this disclosure that there is an attachment to the disclosure so the buyers will know to look for the attachments. Thanks so much. Now let's delve into the disclosure and help with a few of the questions. Page 1 is fairly self-explanatory. We've filled in everything that we can, which is basically the property address, the city, the county, and the zip code. The first questions are fairly basic. The question on line 45 about whether or not there's a manufactured home, in most cases, that answer is going to be no. And then likewise, in line 47, has the title ever been surrendered to the Register of Motor Vehicles? Again, in most cases, that's going to be no. Then on to page 2, again, most things are self-explanatory. Line 52 states that all properties in the state of Minnesota, including your property, has been assigned a flood zone designation. And some flood zones may require flood insurance. It asks in line 54, do you know which flood zone your property is located in? Honestly, most all of our sellers, and myself included, have no idea what flood zone my property is located in. So in most cases, that's going to be no. However, if you do know, certainly you will want to disclose that. All right, then on to the next section here of line 68 regarding an encroachment. An encroachment would be, are you aware of any of your driveways or sidewalks or fences or sheds that are over onto your neighbor's land, or any of their items that are over onto your land? If in fact that's the case, then the answer to that would be yes. And then please remember in lines 76 and 77, if you answer any of the items in lines 69 through 74 with a yes answer, then you need to give an explanation in lines 76 through 77. In line 78, the general condition of the property, it asks about whether or not there's been any damage to the property or structure, which could include outbuildings as well, or sheds, due to wind, fire, flood, hail, or other causes. Honestly, most homes in our local metro area have at one point or another been affected by some hail damage. And if that's the case, then you'd want to disclose that. Then in line 84, it asks if there's been an insurance claim. Again, if you've had a hail damage or fire or something like that, oftentimes there is an insurance claim, to which you would check yes. And then on line 86 and 87, you're going to give a few details about that, such as, yes, there was hail damage to the property in 2015, and we contacted our insurance company, and the insurance company paid for a new roof to be installed. Then on to page 3, it asks down in line 103, has any work been performed to the property for which appropriate permits were not obtained? This is also somewhat common if people finished a basement or maybe an addition on their own. And again, I would emphasize and underscore the need for honesty. Just be straightforward. Just because you didn't pull a permit for something that you did does not mean your house will not sell. It may cause an inspector to scrutinize that area a little bit more, but that's okay. Again, just be honest. Say that you finished the basement, if in fact you did, on your own and you did not pull any permits. The other parts, again, fairly self-explanatory, down to the basement, where it asks about cracks in floors or walls. This applies to slabs, crawl spaces. So slabs could include things such as the garage floor, a concrete driveway, or a concrete sidewalk. In my experience, most all homes in the state of Minnesota are probably going to have some cracks, even though they may be minor, in a driveway or sidewalk or garage floor, or possibly a basement floor. And if in fact that's the case, then on line 120 and 121, you would just reference which line, in other words, A, B, C, whichever you check yes to, then you're going to give an additional amount of information for that. And the age of the roofing material, they're looking for that information. And also on line 128, if there's been any repairs or replacements. So again, back to the previous pages, if you did say that you had a new roof put on as a result of hail damage, then you're going to reference that there. And in many cases, you would say if the roof was completely replaced, that there was a complete re-roof, tear off of the old roof and a new roof installed. On page 4, probably the most commonly misunderstood page is this section where it talks about the appliances, heating, plumbing, and electrical items. There are 3 options to check for each item: not applicable, yes, and no. The easiest way for me to describe how to complete this section is that there should be very few, if any, no answers. If you check no to any of these boxes, what you are saying is that the item mentioned, so I'll use as an example, a fireplace. If you check no to fireplace, you're stating there is a fireplace located at the property, and no, it does not work. In most cases, people are more likely to say that it's not applicable. So if you do not have a fireplace at your home, the correct answer here is going to be the first box, which is not applicable. So again, you'll answer yes to the items that are located at the property that are in working order, meaning yes, they're in working order. Not applicable to the items that are not located at the property, and no answers only to those items that are located at the property and are not in working order. So again, I'll underscore and emphasize, there should be very few, if any, no items marked and checked on this page. Okay. Relative to septic systems, whether or not the seller does or does not know of a septic system on the property or a private well, I think those are fairly self-explanatory, as well as the preferential property tax treatment. In most cases, this answer is going to be no, unless you know if there's a disability for veterans benefits or green acres or something like that, then you can give an explanation. In section G, the Foreign Investment and Real Estate Act, which we refer to as the acronym FIRPTA, the federal government has realized over the last number of years that there are a number of foreign investors that come into our country, invest in real estate, sell that real estate, make a profit, and take their profits back to their home country without paying income tax. And so this is where it is noted if you are a foreign person, we need to note that, and there may be proceeds withheld at the time of closing. In most cases, most sellers are going to say no, they are not a foreign person. And I just wanted to give some context to that question, because you will see it not only here on the disclosure, you will see it on the listing contract, you will see it on the purchase agreement, and you will see it again at the time of closing. The question of methamphetamine, I think, is fairly straightforward, as is the Cemetery Act question. And then environmental concerns. Once again, you want to just answer those questions as honestly and straightforward as you can. Radon is not a required test in the state of Minnesota. However, if you have had a radon test at your property, then you'll need to disclose it here in line 295. And then in line 300, they're going to ask if you had a test done and the test did not pass. In other words, it was over 4 picocuries per liter. Then it's going to ask whether or not you've had a radon mitigation system done at the property, or above, you're going to ask be asked in line 298 to provide the records and the reports from that radon test. And then really skipping on to page 8, which the all-encompassing question then in line 317 and 318 says, are you aware of any other material facts that have not previously been disclosed in the disclosure statement that could affect an ordinary buyer's use or enjoyment of the property? And if there are, of course, you're going to check yes, and then offer an explanation in lines 320 through 323. And that's really it. The other pages are just informational resources that you're welcome to read over. If there were any sections in the disclosure where you didn't have sufficient information, then lines 412 through 419 is going to be the area where you can disclose that information. And then lastly, on line 433, you would sign and date. And that really takes care of the seller's disclosure statement. I hope this has been helpful and that it will answer the majority of your questions as you're completing the disclosure. If you have any additional questions, by all means, reach out to my team and I, and we'd be happy to help fill in, provide some additional information. Thank you.